Welcome, strangers, to Talkumentary, a show where we watch documentaries and then get together and talk about them.
Order! Order! I will have order and decorum in this here courtroom, ladies and gentlemen. Should I do that accent? Yeah. This evening, we are here to discuss a very, very high-profile case, a case unlike any we've ever covered that will affect this young man's life and show you how fucked up our beloved criminal justice system is. I will have decorum in this courtroom. The prosecution will bring forth their evidence. Miss Katy, please present your case.
Yes, sir. I have these coerced confessions right here. Now, if you would just sign your name right here on the line where it says you used, and I know you said that you didn't do it, but right here in the details where we told you did, you want to sign your name right here at the bottom, please.
Do me a kindness. You present a compelling argument.
Yes, I do.
Prosecution, you did a very good job.
Thank you.
Mr. King James, how do you plead?
Obviously, I didn't do it, so I plead not guilty.
Young man, you need to pay for the crimes you so obviously did not commit. So I find the defendant guilty of talkumentary in the first degree. Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Talkumentary. My name is Jeff. I am your host. Today, I am joined by the prosecution, Miss Katy VP.
Holla.
What's up, Katy? Holla, holla, holla. The defendant and found guilty, King James.
Hey,
hello, my friend.
What's up? All right.
Listeners and friends here in the room, we are joined this evening all the way from the great state of Tennessee. He is a transplant to Tennessee. Former deputy sheriff who spent a large part of his time in the sheriff's department working in the jail system as a resource for inmates to succeed when and if they are released from the system. He is my longtime best friend, little brother of our producer, DJ. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce to you our bailiff for this court hearing, Mr. Andrew James Hornacek, first of his name. What's up, dude?
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. Before we learn a little more about Andy, let's talk about the documentary we brought him here to discuss. We have called this court to order this evening to put on trial the 2012 film titled The Central Park Five.
I want us to remember what happened that day and be horrified by ourselves.
New York in the late 1980s was a completely schizophrenic, divided city.
New York's now the capital of racial violence.
Last night, a woman jogger was found unconscious and partially clothed in Central Park. She was beaten and sexually assaulted.
It was the crime of the century.
5 youths were arrested at 96th Street, all between 14 and 15 years of age.
They got him!
You can only imagine the pressure to have this crime solved and solved quickly.
First we was all together, then they started to put us in different rooms separately.
What did you do? Who were you with? Who did you come with?
The tone was very scary. I felt like they might take us to the back of the precinct and kill us.
You're not gonna go home until you give up a story.
I told my son, go to the park that night. I feel guilty.
I'm telling the guy, I don't know what you're talking about. They're getting a little angry.
And they're like, you did it, didn't you?
He had been interrogated for over 24 hours. That amounts to pressure.
These young men were guilty. It was almost unquestioned.
The police controlled the story. They created the story.
They seized on the fears of the people, wilding the bestial characterization of the black man.
There's no DNA match whatsoever to any of these boys.
I was going nuts. No blood on the kids. Nobody could identify them. But if they confessed, and that was that.
A lot of people didn't do their jobs. Reporters, police, prosecutors, defense lawyers. This was institutional protectionism.
We falsely convicted them, and we walked away from our crime.
This is the ultimate siren that says none of us is safe.
This 119-minute documentary covers the arrests, interrogations, trials, convictions, and the eventual vacating of those convictions of 5 innocent boys who were coerced into false confessions, just like we heard happen earlier today, but much more scary, of the rape and attempted murder of a jogger in Central Park in May of 1989. Andy?
Yes.
Yes, Jeff. Yes, Your Honor. You will refer to me as Your Honor from here on out.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I'm sorry, Your Honor.
I asked if you'd join us today, not only because you're my boy, but also because of your experience, not only in the criminal justice system, but because of your insight into the penal or jail system. It's specifically. So tell us a little about yourself, what you do currently, and what you did when you were in law enforcement.
Well, currently I am a commercial carpenter.
I like that trade much better.
Yeah, as do I.
Yeah.
I work for a carpenters union out of Nashville, currently building a battery plant for GM battery-powered vehicles.
Law enforcement. So why did you get into law enforcement, and then why did you get out of it?
I got into law enforcement because I wanted to help people. I kind of always wanted to help people from when I was young. So I decided I wanted to go a law enforcement route. I actually tried to be Omaha PD,
yeah,
but I was so far on the list of so many applicants, I moved to California during the process. From there, I joined the military to get law enforcement experience, Air Force.
Boo.
I was in there for about, whatever, the smart ones. I was in the Air Force for about 5.5 years active duty, and then I got out early to go to police academy for Northern California, where I became a deputy. And all the deputies, they start in the jail. That's why I did my stint in the jail.
So you didn't specifically choose that. That's where you started. Your position when you were in the jail, you had mentioned to me at one point, was kind of services for inmates. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, I started off as a regular, jail deputy, guard, watching the inmates and in their pods and their out times and stuff. But my last 2 years in California as a deputy, I was chosen to be a reentry deputy, which means we help inmates make a plan for when they're about to get released to, in theory, help them not return to jail, which, as you can imagine, we have little real success at, but doesn't mean we don't try,
Yeah. So that was the piece that, it was the most concerning to me when you and I had talked before, was how little you felt like your job was actually doing to make a difference. Most of the people that you helped ended up coming back, which is, kind of sad. So thanks for being here. Let's talk a little bit about the Central Park 5 documentary. So first of all, this documentary did accumulate some awards along the way. It won the Alliance of Women's Journalists Award for Outstanding Achievement by a Woman in the Film Industry for Sarah Burns. It won the Black Film Critics Circle Award for Best Documentary, Black Reel Award for Outstanding Documentary, Chicago International Film Festival Audience Choice Award for Best Documentary Feature, and nominated for a whole bunch of awards as well. The film received a Peabody Award in 2013 for telling a harrowing, instructive story of fear, racism, and mob mentality, and for exposing the media madness that fueled the investigation. Certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 92% tomato meter with 76 reviews, and an audience score of 86% with over 5,000 ratings. Directed by Ken Burns and his daughter Sarah Burns and her husband David McMahon. Sundance selects Weta, Florentine Films, PBS, and the Central Park 5 Film Project production. This was distributed by Sundance Selects, streamed on Canopy, and as always, we will have that information in the show notes. Let's get into it. Order in the court. A quick warning before we get into this episode. Not only is this your spoiler alert, but I feel I must warn you that we will be discussing some mature topics such as murder and rape in this episode. So if those are not topics you wish to hear about today, I might recommend that you go and check out one of our more lighthearted episodes. Maybe go check out Grey Gardens or Won't You Be My Neighbor or Winnebago Man or something more fun like that. This could potentially get just a little bit heavy. Let's talk about why we chose to watch the Central Park 5 this week. Our dealer this week was Katy VP. Katy, why did we watch this documentary?
This is a very famous case. It was one of the first to talk about false confessions, to bring that forward in a courtroom and to use it as part of their defense. It was not successful at the time, but it was the beginning of the Innocence Project, where law firms would pick up cases of people who were obviously innocent but were persecuted by either law enforcement or the government law system, prosecutors, DAs, etc. So with this case being so huge and popular, and the recent release of the Netflix documentary When They See Us by Ava DuVernay, who did another documentary that 13th. We watched.
Yeah.
Yep. I thought it would be very apropos for us.
Andy, you didn't hesitate to say yes when talking about this documentary when I asked you. Was there anything about this that specifically intrigued you, or just like, hey, my boy Jeff asked, so here I am?
I had no idea about this case at all. So it was just because you and DJ are part of this project.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. For me, this was yet another one of those, I know this is going to be difficult to watch docs for me, but that doesn't mean it's not important to know the story of it. Any predictions going into this, James? When we told you what we were watching, did you know about this, or did you have any predictions?
Well, I had never heard of it until the documentary, but when I heard they were innocent, I'm like, oh, okay. I realized that. I know that already.
What do you mean?
Because I lived that. So after I watched this video, I'm like, yeah.
You're not getting past that comment without describing what you mean by that.
Oh, by living that?
Yep.
Oh, well, so a long time ago, we sent out a gas station and things like that. And as kids, probably about as young as they were, if not younger, and a guy older, about 20, 22 or something like that, he used to pump the guy used to pump the gas for you, and he would keep his money. So we were sitting back there just shooting the breeze, laughing and talking to the guy. And the guy that was 22 jumped up and snatched the money, and he ran. And he said, looked at us, and he said, run. So we looked at each other, and we just ran. Mm-hmm. And when we ran, he stopped and said, here, $5. Here, $5. And we didn't think, $5? I'm going to go right back and buy me some candy. Mm-hmm. That's how naive I was,
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, I'm coming home one day, and the detectives were right there. And they called me by my nickname. They said, Poe, is you Pokey? I like, yeah. Can we talk to you? I like, no, I'm going to talk to my mother. That's the only one I'm talking to is my mother.
Smart.
So I walked right past them. And my mother, you don't know my mother, but when they about to do something to your kid, she kind of like
tigress.
Yeah, she just jumped all crazy and everything else. And then just like those kids in this video, when they told their parents just to calm down, it'll be okay. That's the same thing I had to tell my mother, because they said we would arrest you. So I said, Mom, just calm down, Mom. It's okay. I'll go with them.
Yeah.
So then I went with them without her. I'm glad I went without her, because then it would have been 2 cases in there
she would
instead of one, because she would have still flipped the wig.
Yeah.
And anyway, they did the same exact thing, man. The exact thing. They were talking to me all nice, and they were talking to me all good and thing. I'm like, I messed all the questions. Then all of a sudden, he just broke out yelling, hey, and I just jumped and
accusing you of
accuse me like you did, I'm like no. I always, because if I didn't do it, I ain't gonna say I did it, because I thought the alternative would be worse.
Yeah.
Anyway, after all that happened, they started showing me pictures, and I was so scared, and my brain was so just like, oh, what do I do? The people that I grew up with and knew, when they showed me the pictures, I said I didn't know them. I don't know them. And I had to relax a little bit. And when I relaxed, I like, oh, I do know them. It's just how, and then those kids over 30 hours.
I believe that's called being under duress.
They held you for 30 hours.
Not me. I'm talking about in the movie. I only asked a little bit.
Yeah.
And in the documentary, it was like 30 hours, no food, no sleep party.
Yeah. They're not allowed to do that to minors.
That is
it's illegal.
Yeah, that is so insane to me that they were allowed or able to get away with that. That was what surprised me. Not so much the overarching theme of the innocent were convicted and eventually let go, because I kind of knew that going into the documentary that was this story. But I was surprised that the lengths that the investigation went and to make these charges stick, and it worked.
Right. Can we hear the end of James's story?
Oh yeah. Was there an end?
So they brought you in.
And after all that stuff, I'm sorry. After all that stuff, then they looked at me and said they saw you.
Who's they?
The people the people that I recognize, they saw you. They said they saw you.
Playing
and
against
I'm thinking,
each other.
No, didn't nobody saw us. I said, well, nobody there but me, him, and the other guy. By this time, I'm kind of relaxed, and I know they didn't say it. And I'm like, well, where'd that come from? You know, how did they say it?
So
Where were they hiding at? You know,
they're making it up.
They made it up. You know.
Okay.
So after that, the only thing left was to sign. I stayed with my story because it was the truth, and I didn't want my mama to be crying or nothing like that neither. So, you know, I ain't gonna make up no say I did it because I didn't. So I just signed the paper, wrote it out. I don't even think I can read it because, you know, I can read it right now, and I'm as old as I am. You know, but that was the end of it. And then I ended up going home. They didn't even bring me back. I don't even know how I got back home. They took me down, but I don't think they brought me back.
So that's not very good service.
Well, you know.
Service with
the police don't bring you back anymore anyway.
Yeah.
Their job is to
drop you outside.
Yeah, that's what happened.
So you never heard from them again about it?
Nope, never heard from them again. They say they'll talk to me, and I'm like, okay.
That's like the
wow.
You know, they talked in this documentary, and we haven't barely even gotten into this yet, but where they talked about these 5 boys got convicted because they were the ones that they could coerce into giving a confession, where the other guys, which was probably you in that situation, couldn't get him to actually break, so he got off scot-free. Like, it's crazy that they're able to do that.
Yeah. If you didn't do anything, just in case you guys out there listening, don't confess to anything that you did not do.
That's
at least
words to live by.
Yeah, at least if they gotta take you to court, let them take you to court.
And along with that, never take a plea deal.
Yeah.
Ever.
Nope.
Especially if you're innocent.
Right.
If you're taking a plea deal, all that does is show your guilt.
Right. Especially if you're arrested and you're given your defense attorney from the state that they appoint to you.
Oh my
They're going to make you take a plea deal. Don't do it. Whatever you do, do not take that plea deal because all they want is for their day to be over.
Right.
So they're going to take the worst plea deal.
That's it. And don't plead no contest because then that's considered as guilty too.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know how you're going to, you know, they say you might have a chance and you could be, the judge could go your way. No, the judge is not going your way.
Nope.
I can almost 100% guarantee that.
So let's get into some of our favorite or least favorite details about the Central Park 5 documentary. But first, I'll give a quick and dirty synopsis. Central Park 5 is a documentary based around the Central Park jogger case, which was regarding the violent assault, rape, sodomy, and almost murder of Trisha Meili, a white female who was jogging through the New York City Central Park on April 19th, 1989. When she was found by passersby, she was so badly beaten that she was in a coma for 12 days and her face was unrecognizable even by her closest friends and family. This case has been described as, quote, one of the most widely publicized crimes of the 1980s. On the night of the attack, dozens of teenagers, mostly black and Latino, had entered the park, and there were several unrelated reports of muggings, physical assaults, and other mischievous type activity. 6 black and Latino teenagers who were part of these unrelated incidents were indicted in relation to the assault. Charges were dropped for 1 teenager, but the remaining 5, Antron McCray, Kevin Richardson, Yusef Salaam, Raymond Santana, and Kharey Wise, all but 1 of whom were under the age of 16. They were heavily interrogated, given false promises, coerced with aggressive and unfair tactics, and without proper representation, and they were ultimately convinced to give a concocted confession to crimes they did not commit and could not have committed. After a heavily publicized and visible trial, all the boys were convicted of the charged offenses and served sentences ranging from 6 to 13 years. More than a decade after the attack, while incarcerated for attacking 5 other women in 1989, the serial rapist and real piece of shit Matthias Reyes confessed to the Maile assault in probably the only act of humanity ever displayed by this guy. He provided the details and the necessary DNA evidence to confirm his involvement and vacate the convictions against McCray, Richardson, Salaam, Santana, and Wise. The case went on to become a prominent example of racial profiling, discrimination, and inequality in the legal system and in the media. That's the dirty details, I guess, of what the documentary was. So let's get into some of the things that stood out to us. Andy, let's start with you, man. What about this documentary stood out to you? Open-ended question there.
What stood out? I mean, I gotta be the devil's advocate for the cops. I know it makes me the bad guy in the room, but they at first they were right when like these kids were in the park at the time. So I mean, sure they got arrested, but the way it just disgusts me the way the detectives coerce them into these statements, which I guarantee is not the first or the last time these detectives did that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. The amount of pressure that was put on, and we spoke about it just a little bit, but you take it was almost, and I hate to say it this way, but it was almost luck for the detectives and the investigators and the prosecutors that there was all the rest of the group, the calls in the park that day, because they went, oh shit, well, here's a whole group of teenagers that we can pin this on. Let's push them all and see who we can get to fake a confession, and then we can get this over with. Such disgusting tactics, and I can't believe that was a thing. And yeah, we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah,
Katy,
I don't think they originally. Sorry, they didn't originally when they arrested him. They didn't really arrest them originally for that crime. It's like you said, it was convenient for them to they was going to send them home.
Yeah.
But then hey,
hold on to those guys.
Hold them down. Let's hold on to I mean, it's just something else. But I'm gonna add into this right quick, and then I'm gonna back out of it.
No, go.
They had another case in 1931 where they had called the Scottsboro Boys. It was nine black guys in Alabama on a train. This big old fight got out. This girl got they accused them of raping. 2 girls accused them of raping them, and then they just made a case up against them and forced them to confess to it. And they ended up serving a combined time of 100 years.
Oh my Jesus!
And the only way they got out is that the girls decided to tell the truth, and they said, "No, we just made it up."
What?
Because we were out, and we didn't want to get arrested for vagrancy.
No.
Yep.
Motherfucker, you better be going to prison after that.
Mm-hmm.
And then
also
pay
disgusting.
money to those people.
Right.
Yeah.
Those 9 men deserve money.
They didn't. They filed suit for $10,000. One did.
Get out of here.
And never got it. A lot of them just died.
It was too early.
And then I'm going to mention one more guy, and then I'm going to back out of that one too.
Do it.
His name is, hold on a second, Lorenzo Montana, I think it is.
Okay.
Montoya. And he was arrested for rape and beating a teacher. And his confession was coerced. They made him tell that his mother was there for the first 40 minutes. And when she left, that's when they went hard on him. And he said 60 times, according to what I read, he said 60 times that he didn't do it. But they didn't let it go. And they made him sign the confession. And then after he signed his confession, it was wrong. So they made him sign it again and fill in the details to match the crime. No. And then he went to jail for 14 years. And the only way he got out was DNA evidence. DNA evidence freed him.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear nothing else about that case. I'm just, this stuff happened a while back, and it's something that's been going on throughout. We can't help it that sometimes it's the severity of the crime that people get their hearts and feelings in. Oh, they raped her, and it's easy to see stuff like that happen in the hood. Sometimes there's a lot of criminal acts, not a lot, but there's things that happen to people from their own people in the hood.
Yeah.
So when you hear that stuff, you're like, that possibly could have been. That's why a lot of blacks and stuff in the hood in Central Park, they just say the same thing. They like, well, they could be, because they've been through it. They've been victims.
Right.
And so they see it like that too.
Yep.
Not to count that the mob action and all that stuff.
Right, yeah.
But
on another note, yeah.
That's on another note. I don't even know how to dig into this one. I don't know if I should go. Racial was just like 10%. Most of it was just straight profile.
You had mentioned that to me earlier in the week about, the Central Park 5 case. I definitely, there was some, racial tension there. There was some, but it's your belief that in this, racism didn't play as big of a part in it as media, as some people portrayed it.
Yep, racism was there.
Yeah,
but it was more like a profile racism. This is what they normally do, or this is what they do. And then media helped ham it up too. This when Trump should have been in office, because it was fake media. No, I'm just kidding. But still, it was like real stuff, real lies, real people. And then the only thing you can say is, it was so stupid. It was just stupid the way the guy, when they exonerated him, they was like, well, we're going to do this because none of the confessions match.
Right.
Okay, hold on. They don't match now. How did they match before?
Then. Katy, you wanted to speak on James's racism comment. What do you have to add there?
First, I want everybody to know I'm going to abbreviate sexual assault as SA, just as a ease for myself. So, when they said in the documentary that the cases of crime SA on white or black on black were just not in the news.
Right.
It was the opposite race attacking the other was the one that made the news. And that was so striking to me. And when I think about what I remember from college, when a woman reported SA to the police, if their offender was of the same race, nothing happened.
Oh my God.
So if a white woman went to the police and said, I was SA'd by a black man, that person's fired immediately. Right. That person is expelled. But I know for a fact that when a white woman goes and reports a man, the first thing they're going to do is be like, okay, well, we're going to ask him.
Right.
We're going to talk to him. We're going to see his point of view.
What's his story?
And then nothing happens. So I think it's very important that that black men are being held to this impossible standard and then being victimized and vilified as this old, I don't know what you call it, like in the 1920s during that movie that we talked about.
Yeah, Birth of a Nation.
Birth of a Nation, yes.
That crazy guy.
Where the black men were crazy coming to rape the white women. Like, it's this idea that still persists in the criminal justice system, in the police departments. And it's just horrifying to see. And it just takes me right back to college with all the women I know that were SA'd and went to the police and were told nothing's going to happen. He's probably innocent, whatever. We don't want to ruin his life.
Yeah.
Had it been a black man, that would have been a different story.
Yeah. Andy, in your experience in the penal system, I should say, or in law enforcement, and I'm not necessarily asking you to, well, maybe I am. Is there,
oh boy,
did you see that? I mean, I know you well enough to know that, at least to hope that I know that, that's not something that you necessarily would have bottom line, but it would be hard to probably be in that system and not be aware of, whether it's profiling or racism or as Katy was talking about, the exclusion of certain things. Did you notice that? Was that something that you saw in the systems you worked in? Obviously you don't work in them anymore, and there's a reason for that. But yeah, I mean, can you speak to that at all?
Yeah. Thank you for assuming that I'm a good person.
I'm going to try. You've proven that so far in my life. So yeah.
Awesome. I try. I personally, I didn't see like real, like blatant racism.
Okay.
Like in the jail system, specifically in California, we had a pretty good bunch, but they did really good background checks, and we were unionized and everything. And we tend to weed out those guys. But in Tennessee, it's the South. It's a different environment when I moved down here.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the guys I worked with are great. There are some obvious racists, and they just would rile inmates up just like for power, show their power over them, you know. But again,
is there
for the most part, no.
Maybe I apologize a little bit because I brought you here and now you're here to speak for the entirety of law enforcement community, even though you're not even in that community anymore necessarily. But is there checks and balances for that? I mean, we're about to get into a case. I know this was in the late 80s, but you know, that's not, I mean, you and I were 4 years old at that point. So it's in our lifetime. Did you notice is there checks and balances for that, for officers to, I mean, you are a white man and as a police officer, so you're going to, you have the privilege of having that, but you also have the, I guess people are going to look at you in a certain way and assume things about you because you did wear a badge and a gun and are a white man and you live in Tennessee. You know, like there may be some assumptions made about you. So I guess to wind that back, my question, I guess, is what kind of checks and balances are in our system to make sure that shit doesn't happen, if any?
There definitely is. I mean, like I said, the background checks in theory weeds out those bad eggs.
Kind of.
I know
that's why I said in theory it's supposed to.
Okay.
I know
anybody can pass a mental eval, you know.
Right. I know they take classes for that. They take some type of debriefing classes where they try to teach you how. Because I was going to be a police officer myself. I went out for it, but I didn't pass all my tests.
What didn't you pass, James?
I didn't pass the algebra part of it.
Oh, okay.
You know.
What cop needs algebra?
Right.
Well, it's the distance travel from the height and the skid marks when they stop. And
what? Were you trying to be a CIA?
Like highway patrol?
Right. Well, I'm just saying, at that time, you know, I'm older than you. I'm 60 years old.
On behalf of the police department, I'm sorry. You should have been able to be a cop.
You would have made a great cop, James.
Yeah, that's what people say. But I'm saying, you know, even though the good intentions of a person going in to be a police officer, and now, like I said, I'm going to stand up for the police too. You know, even though they go in, somebody like me with them good intentions and stuff like that, the surroundings that you go into every single day and see it all the time can wear on you a little bit.
Well, yeah, and you know, I mean, there's how many movies are out there and TV shows where, you know, the good cop is put into a situation by the old cop who's already got shit under his nails and is, you know, how much of that's true, I don't know. I've never been a police officer, but you know, to pressure you into, you better get on board, rookie, because this is the way we do things, and now you're going to implicate yourself. Anyway, we could go down a rabbit hole there.
Yeah, that's a long time. I just
far away from our documentary.
There's a lot of good people. There's a lot of good people. There's a lot of good cops. And there's, like I said, sometimes your surrounding can dictate a lot of things.
Anything else to add to that, Andy? I know I cut you off because you paused for a long time, and it's my job to make sure that things keep going.
Right. Good job, host.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I'll add. There are a lot of good cops out there, and I mean, I got to bring up the George Floyd case. This will remind me of this whole documentary.
Yeah,
how the good cops were disgusted at what that cop did. I mean, he straight up killed that guy.
And Derek Chauvin was just charged with 2 more kneeling on necks of 2 more people from the early 2000s.
Good.
Are you fucking kidding me?
He's paying out $10 million to 2 other people.
I mean, I agree. Good that he's getting charged, but what the fuck, dude?
Well, these people have records. It doesn't start.
Right.
You know,
No,
when they get caught.
You just get caught
starts before
eventually,
that.
Yeah. All right, so back to the film. One of the things that stood out to me in the film was just so at the beginning of the film, we watch I think they did a really good job with the timeline in this film. They started with when the boys were boys and kind of growing up in Harlem. There was this one little clip, though, when Raymond Santana was talking about himself growing up. For some reason, I couldn't stop thinking about it as I was watching this and shortly thereafter. It was just a short little blip, but he said something along the lines of, I was just starting to come into who I really was as a person. And with a little bit of like a choke in his voice, like he's it sounded like he was maybe fighting through like some tears or something. He stated, but I never really got there. And I think that really kind of set the tone for the feelings of the documentary, because in the case, I guess in general, because these innocent people missed out on such an important time in their life because of the ineptitude and failures of a system that was made to protect. They even mentioned at one point that the most endangered species in America was the young black man. And I would maybe argue that it still is.
A system that was not meant to protect them. It was created to imprison black people.
As we
learned in 13th.
Yeah. Katy, what stood out to you?
I know that I'd heard this case before, and without watching it, I knew that they were innocent because just watching the preview, But what stuck out to me was that in 1989, they knew they were innocent because of the DNA evidence. I did not know DNA evidence was that good in 89. I was born in 89. I didn't know they had that. But even with that, those coerced confessions were the ones that the prosecutor and the DA were using.
Right.
But they were made up. Not a single one of them lined up or were in any way coercive or in any way
cohesive.
Cohesive. Thank you.
Yep.
They did not go together. And so we even got to talk to one of the jurors, the one juror that was trying to hold out. And you know what? If he had, they would have had a hung jury and a mistrial, and they could have started over. And then they would have had a better shot. I'm shaking my fist at this guy, but yes.
No, it's so frustrating to watch that and to see that ineptitude just go unchecked, I guess. And the few people that were trying to check it, like that juror, going, I don't know that I can rightfully say, and then they're in there pressuring him.
Sure.
Probably in the same, I don't want to, I wasn't in the room, but just to put kind of a, I don't know, to kind of compare things, these innocent boys were being coerced into saying things they didn't really mean. And this juror is then in turn being coerced into agreeing with something that he didn't truly agree with to try to get out of these situations. God, if the only word you say in that room is lawyer, then they
can't do anything.
They can't do it. They need to give you that lawyer, right? And they sat there and they told, I think it was Corey, who in my opinion was the saddest case because he spent the longest amount of time. He went to Rikers because he was the older kid instead of going to the juvenile detention center. So he got the shittiest end of a shit stick. He and he's sitting there talking and we're hearing the prosecutor or the investigator say, you have the right to remain silent. Do you understand that? Yep. You have the right to representation. Do you understand that? Yep. And I'm sitting there going, call for representation because you don't really understand that. And obviously that's not to blame him because he was under a lot of fucking pressure.
And a child.
And a child, like I said, just a little short time for me.
Right.
And I was all shucking up.
Yeah.
So imagine 30 hours,
and you weren't being blamed of rape and murder.
Nope. Had it been that
30 hours is torture. They're keeping them awake. They're keeping the lights on.
Yeah, I think if the guy would have hit somebody and knocked them out and they bumped their head and they died.
Right.
And we all ran.
Yeah.
Oh man, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah. To think that this that there was to be out in the park at night, horse playing, messing around, and to potentially go away for the rest of your life.
Wilding out.
Yeah, wilding out. Yeah.
That just makes me think of Nick Cannon.
Yeah,
that's
I
what
know.
One of the guys, I don't remember who it was, but they said they got arrested and they never went home for 6 years or whatever.
Oh God, what a line in that.
Yeah.
Where, like that was the last time I went home. That was the last time I went home for 7 years, and for that guy for 13 years.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Jesus. But I guess what Andy and I grew up. We would go walk around our neighborhoods. Right. We'd go out and we weren't causing all kinds of problems, we weren't assaulting people or anything like that. But we'd go out, we'd, walk around, we'd mess with, we'd do the things that kids do. Growing up where we grew up, being the complexion that we are, being, just growing up the way that we grew up, we didn't really worry about being killed or accused or arrested or anything. I mean, there was a couple times where the police did show up, but we're not going to talk about those things. But we didn't get we could go walk up to the police car and not worry about getting a gun drawn on us
on sight.
Yes,
walking into your own house.
Yeah, the cop that came up
ringing the doorbell.
Right, but being in this group of us four and Bryce sleeping over on the chair. Oh, what's up, Bryce? Andy and I are the two white men in the room. We have a chocolatey brown man over to my left, and we have a female in the room. Brown. I guess this is an opportunity to explore the fact that depending on who you are, your race, your gender, your family's wealth, has a huge impact on the kind of experiences you have. Whether if you're just walking around the neighborhood at night. Katy, James, this is, I guess,
that's a true story.
I'm curious as to what are your experiences. Andy, how old were we when we were doing that? High school, right?
No, not even.
Not even. Okay, so
maybe late junior high, early high school, maybe.
Yeah. So what are your experiences with that, James? Can you go do that? Was that something that you had fear?
No, I'm older than everybody, so it wasn't like that. When I was growing up, I probably did the same thing you did, walk around and did other things. But my mother is the one that kept me in check on a lot of things I would not do because I knew it would affect her. So I didn't want to hear anything. I didn't want nothing to happen to her. So I just didn't do a lot of things. But my cousin, Gene, him and two white guys, they went into a building trespassing. And I think they took something out, a book or maybe a camera or something like that.
Yeah.
They all went to court together. The two white guys, they got like probation or something real super, and they sent my cousin to jail.
Oh, gee.
And ever since they sent him
same
to jail,
group.
Same group, same thing. And he's been in and out of jail for most all his life.
Do you believe that set him up for that?
That set him up for that because mentally he got changed. He was too young. And the innocence, he was just like us. Almost all our family was like churchy like people.
Yeah.
But, every now and then you make those mistakes.
Well, and even in the documentary, Raymond Santana talked about as soon as he was let out, even after he did his 7 years, whatever he did, he had trouble finding work. He had trouble knowing what to do. I mean, his formative years were taken from him. So he got into the drug game.
Yep.
And ended up going back to jail.
Yep.
So it can set you up, to
those
fail.
7 years. Yeah, those 7 years got like, when those boys, the type of wild things they were doing is all atmosphere, their surroundings.
Yeah.
If you're talking about New York, way more violence in New York, and the kids growing up in that area, in the hood, and that type of things, what they did was just the environment. There was an environment of a product of their environment, should I say?
In a group, in mob mentality, too. I mean, you're in a group of people. You're getting, kind of do it.
Right.
So
that's what happened at Westroads. I hear about it when a bunch of people at Westroads got together and they was clowning like that and wilding out, and police were called. And I'm older, but when we went to Westroads, there wasn't nothing like that.
Yeah.
I mean, we tried to sneak into movies one time, and we got caught. It was 3 of us and one guy, and we could have took him. But he took us because why? Our mentality. We wasn't like that. We're not about to jump this guy. And my brain, like, if he's brave enough to take all three of us, well, then we just need to go. And so we just walked out, and we didn't get to see the movie. And when I think back on it, I said that was the smartest decision that we ever made.
Yeah.
It's your environment that can make you or break you.
Yeah.
And your parents, if you got good parents,
Oh yeah.
Katy, did you have anything you wanted to add to your experience in growing up, walking the streets, that kind of thing, and how different that could be from what Andy and I or James experienced?
I guess I can say as a girl, it's pretty different.
Yeah.
When you're younger, you don't notice it because you're not in puberty yet, so you look like all the rest of the kids. But I remember the first time being sexualized, I was probably in 5th grade, and I was wearing a tank top, and somebody said something about spaghetti straps and that I was asking for it.
Oh, Jesus.
And it changed my entire outlook on life. The way I got dressed in the morning at 11, like putting on a tank top, I used to get this feeling if it was a certain style or something, if there was a certain cut, I would look at myself and be like, oh my God, I'm asking for it. And this huge anxiety wave would go over me.
I can imagine.
And I would throw on a sweatshirt, which is largely why I wear baggy clothing as an adult, is because I've had this fear of I'm asking for it since I was a child. And when you traveled in groups, it's a little bit safer, but the fear of being attacked is something that was instilled in me from a pretty young age. And I think if you talk to most women, you can find out the first time they felt sexualized by someone. And it can be family, just someone, what they think they're doing is protecting you. Like, you can't wear those short shorts when your uncle comes over. That's not okay.
Fucked. Yeah. Your uncle shouldn't be coming over then.
Right. Just something, and that's not one that was said to me, but I heard that from somebody else. And just little things like that. And so when I was 13 or so, I remember changing how I dressed when I went outside because it made me feel safer. Like, nobody's going to want to kidnap me or attack me if I dress like this and I ride my bike and I'm with the girls or wherever I'm going, because I was just so fucking terrified. So
it's I'm kind of guilty of that because my daughter, when she used to wear those things, and I would always say, because as a father, you look out for what's going on, because the world, so there's some nuts out there. So he said, "Hey, you can't wear that."
Yeah, and then you put the blame on her.
That. Yeah, and I never put the blame on her. I just said you can't wear that because there's people out there that will look at you in certain ways. So respect yourself and wear something like that. When she get older, yeah. But when she was younger, I couldn't let that happen. Yeah. Because I know there's people out there, and if something was to happen to her, then I would be locked up for a long dang time.
I know. I guess I know what you're saying from a point of view, but like if I was 15 and I wanted to wear a tube top or something, my mom was like totally against it. But if somebody was going to say something to me or do something to me, it's not my fault because I weore a tube top. Right. It's their fault because they're gross.
Because they're fucking nasty.
Right.
And that's what we look out for, the nasty ones.
I internalized that because I wasn't allowed to wear it.
How could you?
I can't wear a tube top now. Right. I can't wear a miniskirt now because I was told that for so many years.
And it affects your
entire outlook on life, your entire self-esteem.
Yeah.
But that's a little off topic.
Yep, but that's all right. I asked. So yeah.
I said my
you don't have to ask, just say whatever you want, man. Oh. It's an open forum here.
Well, the one that I'll take the most part that stood out to me.
Yep.
It was not only the DNA evidence was thrown out, it was the evidence itself was not even taken. When I seen that single line in the grass, dragging that woman all the wherever they did, which was horrible, and you got 5 guys. So he's telling me 5 guys stood in a single line and walked straight down there together.
Hey guys, I know we just committed this heinous act, or we're about to. Right. So let's walk single file down this little hill just so we can
keep
cover
your
our
feet
tracks.
Together. Follow this little 12-inch area.
No,
that's ludicrous.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, no evidence, and then not even the evidence. Nothing mattered. Just say you did it. Yeah, and everybody's all hyped up.
Yeah, that's the piece that sticks. That's like, it doesn't matter what the evidence says. After you've said whether you were coerced or not, whether you were under duress or not, once you've said out loud to somebody that this is something that I did. Yeah, sure. It doesn't matter what they said to you before. It doesn't matter what they say to you after. That's what sticks. And even after the evidence came out, these guys were saying, you had already heard me say that I did it, so you'd made up your mind that I did it, and it doesn't matter if they say, well, you couldn't have done it. I mean, they're looking at this timeline and going, these boys were in this part of the park when this was happening. We have the timeline. So it's physically impossible for them to be in this part of the park and this part of the park at the same time.
Isn't that confirmation bias when you look for the facts to support your theory as opposed to looking at the facts and finding out what really happened?
Absolutely.
That's crazy, though. She got hit with a pipe, a tree branch, and a rock.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, I hit her with a rock.
A little rock.
Yeah, a little rock, a little perfectly round rock. Well, we know from evidence of what happened that she actually got hit with a tree branch, but that checks out. Come on, people. Like, what is going on? Let's see.
I laugh, but it ain't funny.
Just sad.
Yeah, it is.
Let's see.
At least they got paid out, what, $41 million from the city?
It took them a decade to get that.
Yeah, way too long.
Like, wow.
Way too long.
And still, there's no amount of money.
No, they lost their childhood.
They lost everything.
Yep.
Yeah. You better give me $41 million a year to even start making up for that, and that's not even going to do it. I'm looking through my notes here, and it's a lot of the facts of the trial and all that. And I don't know that we need to necessarily go into that. I think we're all in an agreement, and how could you not be, that the evidence didn't add up. These boys were coerced into giving a confession, and once they gave that confession, their lives were in the hands of people who already had made their minds up about them, which is pretty awful. I do think, and I'm interested in your guys' takes on this, but do you think there was any sense of pride in those boys in being able to hold strong in the I'm innocent plea during each of their parole hearings? Because I don't think that, because they said, in fact, Corey actually stopped going to his parole hearings because he's like, I'm not going to tell you that I did this. Because if he's going to parole, trying to get out, and Andy, you correct me if I'm wrong in how this works, right? You're in for amount of time, you're up for parole at this amount of time, and if you go in there and you say, I haven't gotten into any trouble when I was incarcerated, I did the work, whatever needed to happen to make to good behavior, and then and they said, then they look at me and they ask, okay, but did you do it? And
I've been in parole board hearings.
You have. Talk to me about how those go.
Well, it's what is it? A law enforcement representative, a civilian representative, and like a probation department representative. And they bring the person before the board. Like we talk about their case before they show up, and then we bring them in. I always try to not make a decision until that person's sitting in front of me and I hear their story. Give them a fair shot. But yeah, like in that setting, you don't want to hear like, I didn't do it, because in a jail and law enforcement, like you get jaded, like, or maybe it's protective, but like a lot of people say, oh, I didn't do it, because some people lie to the cops.
Right.
Yeah.
So I understand that part where they don't want to hear that I'm innocent, because in their world, in the law enforcement's world, like they're lying.
Yeah. So, but then
these guys were innocent.
Yeah, these and there are plenty of people that are. I mean, the Innocence Project wouldn't exist if cases like that didn't exist. And and I get it. Feeling some jadedness or feeling jaded, and you hear it all the time. I didn't do it, but to think that like I'm not even going to be considered for parole if I maintain that I'm not guilty of this, that I have to readmit to something that I didn't do in order to just get out of here. It's fucked.
Yeah.
It's fucked up.
Yeah.
And I definitely see what you're saying there, but man, like the reality of what happens in those rooms is one thing versus me on the outside of the room looking in and wishing that I could, it's a different story. But
because you want them to be like remorseful, like, yeah, I did it. I feel terrible. I'm a changed person. But
exactly.
If they didn't do it, they didn't do it.
Yeah, that's what I would when I went through the system when I had to do anger management classes and I didn't do anything. Yeah, and I was so hot. I went through like 4 or 5 classes because I was still mad because they kept telling me, just say yeah, and then all the other guys are standing around looking at me like, man, come on, get with the program. Just say yeah. I was like, man, I ain't saying that, man. I didn't do that stuff. I ain't saying that. I ain't agreeing with none of that stuff. I finally got through some old couple that were like old grandma and grandpa, and they didn't blame me for anything. Mm-hmm. And I flew through their class and learned something from it.
That's awesome.
But I mean, they just want you to say, I did it. I did it.
And I'm sorry for doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I ain't agreeing to that mess.
Yeah. But I feel like, there had to be, when it was all said and done, when they finally got the word that they were that their convictions were being vacated and these guys were going, if I remember correctly, none of them ever in a parole hearing said a second time that I did that. I think they all stood, they all maintained their innocence. Yes. Yep. They all maintained their innocence throughout their parole hearings. Mm-hmm. And to be able to walk out of there and go, I mean, how do you not walk out of that jail cell or the courtroom or wherever they were when they got their news? How do you not walk out of there and just look directly in the cameras and go, I fucking told you assholes that I didn't do this shit. You didn't believe me. You coerced me. And
the evidence was there the whole time.
Yes, there's no new evidence.
No new evidence.
No evidence whatsoever.
Just one guy saying, confession. "Oh yeah, it was me."
The real confession.
Yeah, but a different confession.
and
and they believe his confession.
Right, Mateus Reyes or whatever.
Yeah,
you're a piece of shit.
No fucking shit.
But there's nothing that's period. If he hadn't felt sorry for Kharey Wise, he could have taken that to his grave, and these guys would have,
still been there,
potentially still been there.
Mm-hmm. One thing I can say though to everybody that's listening is, take these things as lessons. Court, take them as a lesson. Police officers, take it as a lesson. Learn from your mistakes, and please do not try to repeat them. Check everything and check it again, and make sure that person at least 85% guilty due to the evidence or due to DNA. But if it's not, find another way. Put them in probation.
Have some integrity, guys.
Do something, because everybody's not guilty.
That's what justice is supposed to be, integrity.
Yeah, but 52% of the time, people are put to jail are innocent.
That's right.
52%.
What was the percent?
52.
Jesus, is that for real?
Yep.
And it's supposed to be, when they created the justice system before the penal system, that they would rather let a guilty man go free than put an innocent man in prison. And that has been largely lost in the United States.
I'd rather lock up everybody in hopes of getting the person who did it.
Right.
Yeah, right. And
they're all supposed to be innocent, they'll proven guilty, and that's not the case.
Yeah, exactly.
No, not at all. You have to prove your innocence. Like, fuck hell, I do. Like, what?
You see that
burden of proof is on the prosecution.
Have you ever seen that statue that has the and then the blind lady and stuff like that?
And the blind, because justice is blind.
If you go down to Iowa, they got the same statue, but she has no blind on.
Really?
Yeah, like, wow, what happened to her blind? What happened to the thing?
She's looking.
She's
peeking.
Hey, I'm going to tell you what I want to tell you. That's just crazy.
Probably I don't want to say the most horrifying part, but the cherry on top, I think, of the whole thing was the institutional protectionism after the fact. Mm-hmm. After Reyes came and said, yeah, I did it, the DNA corroborated that his story was right along the line of what actually happened, and they let him go. The media didn't cover it very much. Right. The good news of the overturned convictions and the proven innocence of the boys was far less celebrated than they were for tormenting these boys.
Vindicated for
being thrown under the proverbial bus. Yeah.
Trump apologized. Trump apologized for what he said.
Fuck that.
I'm just saying, that's what he said. He apologized.
No. Oh, one of the 5 printed a 2-page ad when Trump was indicted as revenge for the page that Trump had put in saying hang the 5 boys or something.
Whoa.
So he took his whatever portion of his $41 million, $8 million, and published a 2-page ad as response to what Trump had done when they were arrested.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You know,
he deserved it.
There's a piece of me that goes, in some ways, the collectively the prosecution, the investigators, the detectives who found them, they collectively assaulted and almost attempted murder on these boys because of what they put them through. And by murder, I don't mean the actual ending of a physical life. I mean the ending of their life as a free person, right? So, in my opinion, they should have to pay some kind of consequence for that. Yep. And I'm not just talking about your reputation. Fuck your reputation. I don't give a fuck about that because I just spent 13 years of my life.
Police officers should go to jail. Prosecutors should go to jail.
Right.
The judge.
And I get the institution trying to protect their assets. I understand where that thought process is, but it doesn't make sense because you're in a system that is in charge of the judge, jury, and executioner, because it's all in the same fucking system of someone's life. And if you fuck that up royally, and just like it, and that's, in my opinion, not a oops, I arrested the wrong guy, because that can be, if the evidence isn't there and all that, okay, you let him go. Right?
They ruined 5 people's lives,
yes,
and there was no one to fight them against it, so they deserve to lose and to have justice done to them.
Right, I agree, and it's crazy to me. Andy, I can feel you stewing over there.
Well, you said they didn't mean to murder, or couldn't have murdered them, but they could have got murdered in prison because of their rape conviction.
Yes,
even prisoners hate rapists. So
thank you for pointing that out. I forgot to mention that they went
to Rikers.
Right.
Rikers were no joke.
And they didn't mention this, and I'd hate to assume anything, but that system, the oopsies mistake that this whole system came up with, potentially, I mean, maybe there was SA in prison against these guys, or especially against the guy at Rikers. Yeah. We don't know that. I don't want to assume that, but if you know
anything about prison,
that world, it does and can happen. So especially if you are convicted of.
Right. He explained a little bit of it when he said, I go into a room and I don't ever look nobody in the eye because I'm scanning the room to see what's going on.
You've changed.
I take a shower with my shorts on.
Stuff like that. About that.
And I part of that I already understand that scanning the room.
Yeah,
I do that myself.
That's protective. But you get off by just saying, "Oops, we just won't talk about this anymore."
Right.
Fuck that.
Yep.
Thankfully, I mean, as a little bit of I guess, like we mentioned before, the boys did file a lawsuit on the city and the police and prosecutors who worked against them. At the time of this film, it was still unresolved, but as an update, they did settle after a decade of going back and forth.
Which probably just barely covers their legal fees.
Yeah, probably. Settling for $41 million. The payout equaled about $1 million for each year of imprisonment. To me, that's pennies for what happened. So, okay. Let's start to wrap up just a little bit. How did we feel after watching? Andy, credits roll. What are you feeling, friend?
Disgusted in what those detectives did again. That's stood out the most. Like, they did these kids so wrong. As prior law enforcement, it disgusts me because that's not where we're supposed to be.
Is it insulting as someone who's in law enforcement?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or has been?
Because most of us are trying to do so good and like help people. And you get these idiots that ruin it for everybody.
Right. I know you. I've known you since we were, a long fucking time, right? And I know that you want to do right by people. So I can say with full conviction that I know that, where James and Katy don't know you that way, and you could just be another one of those cops who wants to stand up for other cops and this, that, and the other thing. I know that you went into that with a mindset and a desire to do right by everyone, right?
Right.
And to know that you came out of there because that wasn't what, and I don't know your full reasoning. We never really have talked about that for walking away from it, but I can't imagine that wasn't part of the problem. You know, you're in an institution where people are being wronged left and right by your peers, and knowing that there is good in there is great, but that's got to be really hard to, and we don't have to get into that. I appreciate you being as candid about, you know, all of this as you are. So anything else you want to add about after the credits rolled?
I don't remember. I think the Santana guy, he said he'd been back to jail after he got released, I think.
Yeah.
Probably definitely because being in jail changed him, and he had to change in certain ways, and it's hard to get out of. When I was my reentry deputy, we led a class to help cops learn how to talk to mental health inmates in situations like that.
Okay.
And we had a criminal psychiatrist who worked with juveniles come and teach a class. And he asked us about what questions you guys want to know about. We'll answer whatever questions. And I asked the question, what do we do to keep juveniles, to break the cycle, to keep juveniles out of going to adult jail? They're like, oh, it's a great question. And they never answer it because there is no answer.
Right.
This is a doctor who works with kids in the criminal justice system, and you can't answer that question?
No, he can't answer that question. He can't answer that question simply because he don't understand where they come from. In order to work with a mind of a person that you can understand, that's how you can answer it. But you can't answer that question like that when the people dealing with that stuff all their lives. You can take them out of that area. You can try to get them, help and everything else, but they've been trained from where they came from, how to act and how to respond.
Right.
So the best thing it is just keep doing it. If you can get some people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you can get somebody out of there, if you can start with the parents and talk with the parents and say, look what's happening, and let the parents start with that child when they're young, then you can got some hope there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't have any, I can't really, you take a mad dog and have them fight all the time, that's all they're going to know.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to get that fight back out of the dog.
They got to see the picture.
Yeah.
So like when you said, if you can help one, that was kind of our motto in our reentry office. As Mother Teresa said, if you can't feed 100, feed one.
Feed one.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that makes it worth it if we help one person.
Right.
Yep. But damn it, I want to help them all, Andy.
Right. Well, we did. We tried. But.
Yeah. Yep. So I like to ask, do we feel that this documentary was well made? In my opinion, this is what a documentary is. There's no room for interpretation here. There's no hidden meanings or agendas that stand out. This was, ultimately, I don't think there was a lot of bias in this. Besides, the clear disapproval for the way the system handled things. You watch it, you get the details in the perfect order. The interviews are good. They're well filmed. Was the subject matter my favorite? Obviously not, because this is an awful situation. But this, and no, this isn't my favorite documentary of all time, but this is the epitome of a documentary. This tells me everything I need to know, exactly how it happened with as little amount of bias as, this is a documentary to me. And in some ways, depending on how you define documentary, I feel like this might be the first one that we've watched on this show that was a true to form documentary. This happened in the past. This is the information that you need to know. This is all of it. This is what happened. And, with the exception of there not being the information to talk about how the case was resolved toward the end, from beginning to end, it was all there.
It was Ken Burns.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's hard to argue with that.
Yep.
Ken and Sarah Burns, right?
Yep.
His daughter. So we've come to the time in our show where we rate the documentary. This is the super official documentary rating. So watch out, everybody. Each crew member scores the documentary on a scale of 1 to 10 items, with 1 being as bad as every single person who was in the room when these boys were being interrogated, and 10 being as amazing as the Christmas of 2002 when they were at home with their families again and exonerated of their crimes. The item we used for scoring this week was false confessions. So I guess 10 false confessions, even though that seems bad, it's a good thing in this scenario. So Andy, why don't you start us off, man? How many false confessions do you want to rate the Central Park 5?
I'll give it 6 false confessions.
6 false confessions. So it's just above halfway the best thing that you've ever seen in your life.
It's probably the topic skewed it a little bit, like this uncomfortable topic, but
yeah, it makes you want to throw up.
Yeah.
But with the exception of them getting let go, which was the only silver lining here. Yeah, agreed. Yeah. James, how about you, sir?
I gave 7.
Okay. Same kind of feelings about that?
Pretty much the same feelings. I can feel these guys and understand where they're coming from because I've been through it. So I like the documentary. I should have gave it more than that, but 7 is a fair amount.
Lady Katy.
I also gave it 7, but I have to say I was unhappy it was not more biased. I thought it should be more biased because clearly there was an obstruction of justice, several obstructions of justice, and clearly some terrible things were done. So even though it was a true documentary in that they were unbiased and presenting information for us to draw our own conclusions, I was so angry during the entire thing. I wanted someone to stand up and say,
fuck.
Yes, this is terrible. This shouldn't be happening. These 5 young children were sent to prison. Yeah. Oh, I was so angry. I would have given it more stars had someone been a little more angry. Yeah. But that's not a true documentary. So
yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that because I want to be out on that picket line going, free the fucking Central Park 5, you know, like, but you know,
they
it
were
is
babies.
Yeah. I also gave this a 7, similar reasoning, so I don't need to go into any of that. So after averaging everyone's scores, the official documentary rating for the Central Park 5 is 6.7 false confessions. I want to say a very special thank you to my friend Andrew Hornacek for joining us tonight and giving some insight into his experience into this world. Thank you, my friend, for being here. Always good to talk to you. Hope you had fun. Did you have fun? Well, as fun as you can have talking about shitty topics.
Yeah, it was fun talking with you guys.
Okay, good. I'm glad you got out of that line of work. I'm really happy that you're doing something that is, you know, with your hands and, you know, you went the way of Jesus and became a carpenter. So way to go.
Absolutely.
You need
it's
to
good
come
enough
in.
For Jesus, good enough for me.
Yeah. You need to come into town and there's a little fast food restaurant a couple hours from us that we need to.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, say it. Say it.
Oh, Bebops.
Bebops, baby.
Best thing to come out of Iowa.
the only good thing to, no, I'm kidding.
Maybe the only thing.
Yeah, one of the few things, yeah. Yep. Okay. Katy, King James, you guys are the best. I'm sorry it went a little late. I know we're all tired. I'm tired too. My voice is starting to scratch. So let's talk about next week's episode. For next week, we will be ignoring all of the no trespassing signs, waxing all of the concrete benches, and practicing our frontside nollie kickflip boardside 900s as we drop into the 2018 documentary called Minding the Gap. This is a documentary that follows filmmaker Bing Liu as he and a few of his closest friends bond through skateboarding as an escape from their volatile family lives. And as they grow into their adult lives and responsibility, has anyone in this room seen Minding the Gap yet?
No.
I have not.
You know, I used to like to skateboard.
Did you?
Yeah.
I would not have pegged you from your look.
Yeah, well, you know, I went through a little bit of a skater boy phase, and
he was the skater boy.
Yeah, and I said, "See you later, boy." Yeah.
That was for all the millennials out there. Thank you.
We had a group.
You are so welcome. I was so
too, man.
Yeah.
I just called myself the one-leg rider. I made a cape and everything.
Oh shit! Oh, I want to see pictures of that
aluminum skateboard.
Andy, I don't remember you being out there skating with us very often, but
I tried.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
We were awful, dude. We were so bad. We would just try to ollie up the curb, and we would never get any better at anything. But it looks like a really good documentary, and I'm excited to get into it. Check out Minding the Gap before next week's episode. It can be streamed on Hulu. Do that so you can join us as we execute the perfect kickflip, one documentary at a time. Go out and rate and review our podcast. Please go out and say something on a platform about how much you hate or love us. We prefer love here. Find us on any of your podcast streaming services. Let us know what you think at Talkumentary Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or email info.talkumentary@gmail.com. Andy, thanks again for being willing to hang with us, my brother.
You got it.
Andy, do you have anything you want to plug or talk about before you go? Hornacek Woodworks? Anything like that?
I just want to reiterate, most cops are good. They try hard.
Exactly.
I'll believe it when I see it.
A lot of police officers are good.
Good cops hate the bad cops even more than civilians.
They got a lot to make up for.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I hope DJ's playing the outro music right now, because this is a whole new episode we maybe just got into. On behalf of Katy, King James, DJ in the booth, Andy, and our entire Talkumentary family, I'm your host, Jeff Kolaski. I want to thank you all for listening. I hope you keep your minds open and be kind to each other. I will see you on the next episode. I love you all. Goodbye.
Ciao. Ciao, baby.
Andy, say bye.
God bless. Bye.
God bless.
God bless.